So my question to you is, who told us to take life so seriously, and how does it help? And I'm just going to give a few examples off the top of my head of people I can think of, and so it was one time when Jan, she came over to my house, and she'd been struggling with depression for a long time, and then she'd had this realization, this insight, that she'd watched a reflection that I'd put on, and she went, "Oh my God, I'm creating it." And she'd seen that for herself, and then she'd kind of gone back into some habitual thinking and got lost a bit inside the narrative again. And she came over, and she was like, "Oh, I'm not well. I'm not well. I'm depressed, and I can't see my way through it." And there happened to be a hula hoop in my kitchen, and it was one of those weighted hula hoops. I was trying to learn to hula hoop, because why not? And I said, "Can you hula hoop?" And Jan's, in her 70s, and she went, "Yeah, I can hula hoop." And she picked up this hula hoop, and she starts hula hooping in my kitchen. She was great. And she was laughing, and she was smiling. And I was like, And then we went and sat outside in the garden. And she said, "Yeah, no, I went to church on Sunday, and my friend asked me how I was, and so I told her, I said, I'm not well." And my friend said, and this is what she said, my friend said, "Oh yes, I can see you're not well. I can see you're walking funny." And I said, "You're walking funny, Jan. I hadn't noticed you're walking funny." And anyway, we sat in a lightness. We started to kind of look at things, and we didn't take it too seriously. And you might think that I'm not taking Jan seriously, but I'm taking Jan seriously. But I'm not taking her limited beliefs about herself seriously. I'm not taking her narrative and her heaviness seriously, because if I take it seriously, then I kind of, chances are we both getting stuck in it, and we keep it alive. And whereas, when I see beyond it, and then she kind of sees beyond it herself. And when she left, she was like, "Oh," she said, I feel so light." She said, "I just want to bottle this feeling and take it away with me." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that feeling is you, beyond your narrative, beyond what story you're telling yourself, beyond, the negative thoughts that you're innocently bringing alive and habitually." And, I said, "This feeling is not coming from me. It's not coming from my garden. It's not like you need to bottle it up, and it's not outside of you. It's you." This is the thing. When we stop taking our experience so seriously, we fall into a lightness, and we feel different. And there's, this seriousness kind of falls away. And I've seen this, again and again. I was talking to someone, and she said, I went to the doctor, and I told him I just couldn't stop crying, and he wants to put me on antidepressants. And we were talking, and she was laughing. She started laughing, and then she really started laughing. And I was like, "You need to go back to the doctor. You need to tell him that you can't stop laughing." And we laughed a bit more. And it's not that I'm not taking the person seriously, but I'm not taking their experience of life in that moment seriously, because it doesn't help them. And when I go on these funny WhatsApp journeys with people who randomly come my way, and we start these WhatsApp messages, and it's like, what goes on WhatsApp? Anything goes on WhatsApp, and we just laugh. And whatever story is going on, even when someone's going through something really hard, it's like the laughter, it brings someone out of it. It's like we have humor for a reason, it's like we think we have to take everything really seriously. Even that person, when I spoke to her, when she was kind of she decided that she was going to end her life, and she was stuck in suicidal thinking and finding a way out. And we also had a really light conversation. And someone might say, and she'd already seen a GP and a counsellor, And there had been a tendency to, all well-intentioned, but there'd been a tendency to take the suicidal thinking really seriously and really, climb inside it. And all that happens is you all become really heavy. You're trying to fix something. But then when you kind of have this bubble, and you just let it float on by, the suicidal thinking, whatever it is, the depression, and then you connect with someone beyond it and you see them, and there can be a lightness and there can be humor. And people sometimes go, but Kate, that's not, that's not enough. You need to take it more seriously. And it's like, how do you get someone to see beyond their experience? If you take their experience so seriously, you can take the person seriously and you can talk to them, but you can still kind of be light around the experience they're having, because it's not who they are. And, humor, just generally, I mean, I remember when my dad was ill and at one point he went to hospital, and I think that they told us that he'd tried to get in the ambulance. He was taking sort of some concoction of drugs, and he went a bit loopy. And my lovely dad, and they'd said that he'd tried to get in the ambulance and leave or something. And we were talking, and it was so sad, but at the same time, we all kind of found the funny side, because it seemed to be the thing that kept us afloat. When something's really hard, when you're having a hard experience, it's almost like the humor keeps you, I don't know, it keeps you going. And I remember we sort of said to Dad, what were you doing? You got in the ambulance. And we're like, thank God the keys weren't in it. And we were like, do you know how to drive an ambulance? And Dad was like, well, probably not. Probably it was a good job the keys weren't in it. And, kind of bringing a lightness to something that was really sad and difficult to deal with at the time. And you might sort of say, when I'm talking about that woman who was experiencing the suicidal thinking, and you might still be thinking, have your own thoughts around, you're not taking it seriously, Kate, and you obviously don't have experience of that. And actually I do have experience of that, and I'll tell you about that in another episode. But my experience of that, actually, because it was before I came on this journey, and I did take life really seriously before, and when I went through that in my life, I took it really seriously for about 30 years. And it was really difficult. I carried this weight of seriousness and heaviness and a lot of narrative for about 30 years. And when I came out of it and I saw it all differently, it was so different. It was funny, because it was because it was my dad. And it was as though just having a moment. It's going to make me want to delete this, but I'm going to carry on going. When I saw beyond it, when I saw beyond the narrative, and I saw what I was creating and saw what I was holding on to, it was as though my dad was saying, he was like, look, it sounds like it's not funny because I'm kind of welling up, but actually it was as though my dad was saying, oh my God, Kate, what took you so long? 30 years for you to see beyond your narrative. And it was funny, and I laughed, and it was as though I was with Dad and we both laughed. What took you so long, Kate? And this is why I share this, because when you get stuck inside a really heavy sort of narrative, it feels heavy. And actually, it feels serious, and it feels like we have to take it seriously. But actually, when you see beyond it, you connect with who you really are beyond your experience. You connect with a lightness, and everything changes. And it's like, it's like Dad saying, what took you so long? And then laughing, and nothing's changed on the outside. but that there can be laughter and a lightness where before there was this heaviness and this seriousness. And, you know, maybe that's what life's about. Living. Shall I post this or am I going to delete it? Maybe I don't take it seriously. Maybe I just post it.